on this best of the Marc Berman Show Rockstar interviews, a 2014 interview I did with Gary Wright, Dreamweaver. He talks about his book that was released back in 2014 and lots of insight into Gary Wright, who we lost on September 4th, 2023, sadly. And he was a New Jersey guy. Now, my interview with Dreamweaver, Gary Wright.
Gary Wright is a songwriter, performer, producer, and now author. Dreamweaver, music, meditation, and my friendship with George Harrison is in stores now, and Amazon, and wherever legal digital downloads are found. Hey, from New Jersey to the UK, India, and the world, the book reflects on Gary's long and illustrious career in the music business and tells the little-known story of his professional collaboration, friendship, and spiritual journey with the quiet Beatle, George Harrison. Gary's had 3 Billboard Top 20 charted singles as a solo artist, Dreamweaver, Love is Alive, and Really Want to Know You. At the heart of the book is the spiritual conversion and journey that Gary Wright experienced alongside George Harrison. Until Harrison's death in 2001, the two spent decades together writing songs, eating Indian fare, talking philosophy, and gardening. The website, thedreamweaver.com. Please welcome songwriter, producer, Jersey boy, and now author Gary Wright. Gary, welcome to the Marc Berman Show.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, before we get into the book, let's talk about Wright locally. You've played here in Atlantic City with Ringo's All-Star Band, and prior to those days, you've taken the trip down the New Jersey Turnpike to Philly, where I'm from, several times. Once, September 5th and 6th, 1969, at the original Electric Factory with Spooky Tooth, and you headlined, and the opening act, Chicago Transit Authority. Do you remember that?
I think so, yeah. I know we did several shows. I know there was one out here in L.A. at the Whiskey, where they were opening for Spooky Tooth as well. It's funny.
But then, and you write about this in the book, you write about this in the beginning of the book, you appeared in front of 120,000 people at the old JFK Stadium with Peter Frampton.
Yes.
I was there. It was incredible. Without giving away too much, can you talk a little bit about how you felt standing there? That was a huge crowd.
Yeah, that was the largest audience I'd ever played before. Well, I think on the bill was myself, Peter, and Yes. And there may have been a couple of other artists, I don't remember who. But it was, when you have that amount of people out in front of you, it's like, and your record has just been number 2 in the charts, and the new one you just put out went to number 2 as well. It's an amazing feeling of power, but in a good sense of the word. In other words, because, I think Dreamweaver was a very spiritual song for its time, and it was a unique song. And I think putting that out and playing that before that many people was just an amazingly wonderful, fulfilling experience for me.
Dreamweaver is absolutely an amazing classic track that we still hear today. You chose to go to college in Germany. It was Europe that changed your life. A little bit of Asia changed your life. It's a big part of the book. Can you share a few key instances without giving away too much? And can you talk a little bit about Klaus Voormann?
Yeah, well,
wow,
Klaus,
incredible guy.
I admit Klaus, he played on my first solo album, Extraction, and he had been friends with the Beatles when they were in Hamburg, first getting their music together. He was an artist and photographer as well, and so I was in the studio working on a project in London. I was working for Jimmy Miller, who had just gotten me a gig to produce the Stones, and Klaus calls me in the studio and said, look, I'm in the studio with Phil Spector and George Harrison. It's George Harrison's first solo album effort, and Phil's producing, and they need another keyboard player. Can you come to the studio right now? And I said, sure, I'll be right there. And I got to Abbey Road Studios and walked in, and there's Klaus and Ringo and George and Eric Clapton and God knows who else. And I played on the first track, Isn't It a Pity? And George and I immediately developed a rapport. I think he picked up that I was into the kind of spiritual philosophy that he was into, although I didn't know really anything about it at the time, other than what I'd read, like in college, maybe the Bhagavad Gita or some other books. And he picked up on it, and really became my mentor and ultimately invited me to go to India with him as the guest of Ravi Shankar. And I was there for about 2 weeks, and it totally changed my life, what I had seen and the places we visited. And he was just an amazing human being. I'd never met anybody like him. He was super creative, very deep. He wasn't superficial at all. And it was the beginning of a relationship that endured over his entire life.
And you actually played on his solo CDs.
Yeah, I played on all his albums, and we both co-wrote 2 of the songs.
Now, did you know about Maharishi Mahesh Yogi prior to George Harrison? You spoke that you're spiritual. Did you know about him prior to this, and had you met him?
Only what I'd seen on the media. I didn't really know that much about him, other than the stuff that they were running on the media about the Beatles meeting him up in Rishikesh. That's really all I had known. And I spoke a little with George about him, and George said, yeah, he was, he was a teacher. I don't think George felt that he was his guru, but I think he, acknowledged him as a teacher. I believe Ravi Shankar had introduced the 2 of them.
Now, you've traveled the world. You've traveled the world with George Harrison, and I'm taking away that much of this were spiritual trips, or at least they affected you in a spiritual way. Machu Picchu, you were there with George. Was that a special place for you?
I wasn't in Machu Picchu with George. That was on another trip that I had made with another friend of mine, Chris Agatanian. Yeah. That was later on, actually. That was 1979.
Oh, so
but I did meet George on that trip. I think that's where the confusion was. He went to the Grand Prix in Sao Paulo while I was in South America, and we met up there. And he was a real avid fan of Formula One racing. So he was there because Jackie Stewart, I think, was racing, and Emerson Fittipaldi and some of those other people. And we just hooked up for a few days.
Did you perform with Florence Henderson on the Ed Sullivan Show?
I did. I was 11 years old at the time, and I was in a Broadway musical called Fanny. And I played her son in the film and in the play. And we sang a duet together every night called Be Kind to Your Parents. And Ed Sullivan picked up on it and invited us to go on and perform it on his show. So we did. And I often joke with George saying that I was on the Ed Sullivan Show before he was.
Now, did you ever return to the Ed Sullivan Show?
No, that was it.
So as a solo performer, you did not. But Gary, great music lives forever, and the original master of Dreamweaver, a song we continue to hear today, was lost. You had to recreate it for use in Wayne's World movie?
Yes.
Okay, first, what did you think when asked about having to include it in the film, and what did you have to do to recreate it?
Well, initially I thought, wow, that's not really the vibe of the song, because I had seen what they had done on Saturday Night Live with Madonna, as she was like the Dreamweaver. But I thought it was done in good taste. I don't think it was disrespectful in any way, and so I agreed. And I know that Mike and Dana were kind of fans of my career, so I thought it was really good. Recreating it was a challenge, but I think that the version that's in Wayne's World was as good as the original recording. It was just very slightly different. So I think that worked. I don't think that was a detrimental thing for me to have done in any respect.
Did Olivia Harrison assist you with anything with the book?
Oh yeah, Olivia helped me choose pictures and things, little snippets of information, and she was very helpful. She's been a friend for a long time.
Now I'm confused. You started a band called the New York Times, but you spelled it Tymes.
Yeah, that was.
Am I correct? There was a Times here in, I guess, New York, more doo-wop oriented. What were you playing? And this was in Germany?
The doo-wop band that I was in, the New York Times, was in Germany, and we actually had a gig in Norway as well. We opened for Traffic. It was their first show, and their manager / record company owner, Chris Blackwell, saw me perform, and he invited me to come back to England. And he put me together with 4 other musicians that he was managing at the time, and we became Spooky Tooth.
And that was absolutely an amazing band. I have to ask you, and everything we're talking about is in the book, and to my listeners, you want to pick up Dreamweaver, Music, Meditation, and My Friendship with George Harrison. It's a book for music fans, Beatle fans. It's a book for spiritual people. It's a book for travelers. You'll hear about destinations that will make your mouth water to visit. It's all in the book, and you can get it at Amazon. It's in stores now. So what do you want to convey about George Harrison? He was the quiet Beatle, as it says in the bio and everything else. He was, but what did you take away from George and knowing him as personally and as well as you did?
Well, first of all, I don't think he was a quiet Beatle, and those of us who knew him can vouch for that. At George's memorial service, Eric Idle said, for those of us who knew him as the quiet Beatle, we know that wasn't really correct, because once George stopped talking, he never stopped.
We want to think this of him.
No, he was a very, very deep person, and probably the most creative person that I think I'd ever met. The way he designed his gardens, or he painted rooms in his home, and just super creative. He always had a guitar. Everywhere you went, there'd be a little room with a guitar in it, and so he could pick it up and start playing something, or ukulele. And wonderful human being, very caring, very thoughtful. I've never met anybody like him.
Gary, you're from Jersey. You're a keyboard player.
Yes.
Did you play a Hammond B3?
I did.
Gary, how did you schlep that thing around?
Oh, we had road managers do that. But in the very early days,
yeah,
I had to do it myself with maybe one of the help from somebody in the band. I didn't have a B3 then. I had, I think, some smaller version of it, like an L. I don't know what the name was, an L100 or something like that. It was a Hammond, but it wasn't with all the big bells and whistles like the B3 had.
And you are from Jersey. This is where you started, and so going back in the day, as they say, this is before the day, possibly. Do you remember playing clubs in New Jersey?
Oh yeah.
Do you? Can you?
I don't remember exactly which specific ones. I remember I was in a band called Buddy Randell and his Twistabouts. And Buddy Randell was the saxophone player in the group The Royal Teens that Bob Gaudio produced. And Buddy then, after my having been with him in the band, the Twistabouts, started a band called the Knickerbockers that had a record out called Lies, which was, I think, a pretty big hit for them.
Yeah.
But we used to work down in clubs down in the Jersey Shore. I'm not sure exactly which cities, maybe Beach Haven, but I'm not really sure. I can't remember. And,
of course, you're from North Jersey, and we're down here in South Jersey. It's like two separate countries, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
As you know, you're from Jersey. But we only have a couple seconds left with Gary Wright. Gary, you've played Atlantic City. Can you reflect? Did you visit here as a kid at all? Do you have any memories of our town?
Well, Atlantic City, when I saw it, was different than when I came back to see it with Ringo. But it was, I always liked the Jersey Shore. I had very fond memories of it. It's going down and eating those kind of, the kind of fish that you could only get in the East Coast that's not available out here. It was great. It was really great. The thunderstorms, I remember vividly when we'd have rain showers and massive thunderstorms in the summer, how loud the thunder was.
It is crazy. We have beautiful, beautiful sunsets here. One more thing. Do you still enjoy Indian cuisine, and what's your favorite dish? Do you eat tandoori chicken?
I do occasionally from time to time. I'm basically a vegetarian, but I do like tandoori chicken, and I will eat it every now and then. And I love aloo gobi and saag paneer, a bunch of things. We have some really great Indian restaurants here in L.A., and I've always loved Indian food.
Gary Wright, I want to thank you for spending a few minutes on the Marc Berman Show. To my listeners, Dreamweaver, Music, Meditation, and My Friendship with George Harrison, it is, as I said before, a killer book. You need to get it. It's an easy read. Just pick it up, get in bed, curl up, and read this book, because I think it'll be very enlightening. It is enlightening about the music world and Gary's trek around the world with George Harrison.
Hi, this is Gary Wright, and you're listening to The Marc Berman Show.
The Marc Berman Show is always on. Go to marcberman.com for our podcasts of our past shows and interviews.